2:42 p.m. on May 6, 2010, the DRW plunged 1,000 points and $1 trillion vanished from the stock market in just 36 minutes. Government officials flooded emergency lines, fearing a terror attack or a massive bank error. But what if the real culprit behind this global disaster was not a rogue nation or a Wall Street giant? What if the greatest financial shock of the decade began with a single guy, alone in a suburban basement? The search for answers would last 5 years, and nothing about what investigators found made sense. Within minutes of the collapse, every theory on Wall Street's blacklist landed on the table. Analysts pored over trade logs, hunting for patterns that might reveal a coordinated attack. The scale of the crash, $1 trillion erased in 30 minutes, seemed too vast for any single actor. Suspicion zeroed in on foreign governments. The timing, the speed, the sheer violence of the drop, these were hallmarks of a hostile cyber operation, some said. Newsrooms speculated about Russian hackers, Chinese state-backed funds, and North Korean cyber units. Intelligence agencies scoured for digital footprints, but nothing fit the profile. Meanwhile, the world's biggest banks found themselves under the microscope. Banks such as JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup faced a barrage of questions. Had a rogue trader gone off the rails? Was this a repeat of the scandals that shook markets in 2008? Executives denied wrongdoing, but rumors spread faster than any official statement could chase them down. Cybercrime units joined the hunt. Cybercrime investigators asked, could a criminal syndicate have slipped a virus into Wall Street's trading engines? Investigators combed through code, searching for malware, backdoors, or any sign of an inside job. FBI, the SEC, and the Department of Homeland Security all launched parallel probes. Each agency followed its own trail, but every lead seemed to loop back to the same dead ends. The media fueled the frenzy. Media headlines screamed about black swan events and financial Armageddon. On talk shows, pundits debated whether the crash was triggered by a fat finger typo, a flash mob of day traders, or the next evolution of algorithmic warfare. Theories multiplied, but answers remained out of reach. For months, the official suspect list grew longer. Every major exchange, every high-frequency trading firm, every dark pool operator landed under suspicion. Data requests piled up. Regulators issued subpoenas that spanned continents. Yet behind closed doors, investigators admitted they were stumped. The deeper they dug, the less sense it made. The world's most advanced financial system had collapsed in broad daylight, and no one could explain how or who was behind it. Passing the aftermath of the flash crash demanded a level of forensic detail that most investigators had never encountered. The American stock market, once a single bustling floor, now sprawled across dozens of exchanges, each running on its own servers, each logging trades in slightly different formats. Every second produced a torrent of data, millions of trades, billions of messages, drowning even the most seasoned analysts in raw information. Detectives from the SEC, the CFTC, and the FBI found themselves poring over endless spreadsheets and server logs, searching for a pattern that would explain the chaos. The problem was not just volume. Each exchange guarded its records, citing privacy, security, or technical incompatibility. Some logs arrived late, others arrived incomplete. Matching trades across borders meant negotiating with overseas regulators and private brokers, each with their own protocols. Investigators tried to reconstruct the crash second by second, but the puzzle pieces never seemed to fit cleanly. Orders placed on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange ricocheted through New York, London, and back again, leaving a trail that blurred at every handoff. Teams of data scientists worked around the clock, writing custom scripts to sift through the noise. They built timelines, mapped out order flows, and flagged anomalies. But each time they thought they had found a smoking gun, a suspicious surge in volume, or an outlier in the data dissolved under closer scrutiny. The largest trades came from well-known institutions, following algorithms that, while aggressive, appeared legal. High-frequency trading firms left behind a blizzard of activity, but nothing that screamed sabotage. Months passed. The official reports pointed fingers at fragmented markets, automated trading, and the sheer speed of modern finance. But the deeper investigators dug, the more the truth seemed to slip through their fingers. The logs hinted at something OD, a pattern that did not fit the profile of any major player, but the evidence was buried in terabytes of routine trades. The world's most sophisticated surveillance systems had failed to spot the real threat, leaving investigators to wonder if the answer was hiding in plain sight, masked by the very complexity they relied on to keep the market safe. The breakthrough came not from a global bank or a shadowy syndicate, but from a single line in a mountain of exchange data. Deep within the logs from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, investigators traced a signature pattern: waves of massive sell orders appearing and vanishing in seconds. The digital fingerprints led to one IP address, not in Manhattan or Zurich, but in a quiet suburb west of Heathrow Airport. That address belonged to a modest house on a residential street in Hounslow, London. Behind the unremarkable front door, the culprit was neither a cartel nor a hedge fund. It was Navinder Singh Sarao, a day trader in his 30s working from his childhood bedroom. His setup was almost comically underpowered: a second-hand PC, a pair of aging monitors, and an internet connection that lagged behind the trading floors by a full second. Yet the data was clear. Every suspicious order, every vanishing wall of trades pointed back to Sarao's account. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange logs did not just match the pattern, they mapped it straight to his fingertips. When regulators first saw the evidence, disbelief was the only honest reaction. Could one man, armed with little more than off-the-shelf software and a stubborn streak, really outmaneuver the world's fastest trading engines? The numbers said yes. Sarao's account had placed and cancelled thousands of orders in the E-mini S and P 500 futures contracts, the same contracts that fueled the market's collapse. Each fake order sent ripples through the system, tricking high-frequency trading algorithms into panic selling until the entire market buckled. The question was no longer about who, but how. Was this the work of a criminal mastermind, or just a clever gamer exploiting a broken system? Sarao himself, when pressed, insisted he was only playing by the rules that Wall Street's architects had written. To some, he was a villain. To others, a folk hero. But the data left no room for doubt. The face behind the trillion-dollar crash belonged to a solitary trader in a London basement, staring at blinking numbers on a dusty screen. Navinder Sarao's operation looked nothing like the world he was up against. While Wall Street's trading giants poured millions into server farms and fiber optic cables, Sarao sat in a small room in Hounslow, London, surrounded by childhood posters and old furniture. His equipment was basic: a second-hand desktop, a pair of battered monitors, and a broadband connection so slow it lagged a full second behind the New York exchanges. In the high-speed world of finance, that's an eternity. Firms like Citadel and Jump Trading spent fortunes shaving microseconds off their trades, co-locating their machines inside the exchanges themselves. Their servers could process thousands of orders in the blink of an eye, running on code fine-tuned by teams of engineers. Every millisecond counted. A single delay could mean millions lost or won. Serao, by contrast, worked with what he had. His software was a modified version of an off-the-shelf trading platform, tweaked by his own hand. No army of coders, no custom-built algorithms running on racks of hardware. Just a stubborn streak and a knack for spotting patterns. He'd stare at the blinking numbers, mouse in one hand, cup of tea in the other, while his connection lagged behind the action. Yet somehow, he managed to insert himself into the heart of the world's fastest market. The gulf between Serao and the titans of finance couldn't have been wider. On one side, banks and trading firms spent billions to gain an edge measured in microseconds. Their trading floors buzzed with the hum of supercomputers, the air thick with the pressure of split-second decisions. On the other, a lone trader in a quiet London suburb, using a setup that would not look out of place in an internet cafe. The irony was hard to ignore. While the giants obsessed over speed, Serao outfoxed them with patience and a homemade edge. The question that haunted investigators and rattled the industry was simple. How did one man with a laggy connection manage to beat a system built for speed? That answer lay in the code he wrote and the game he played with the machines. Every second on Wall Street, millions of trades flash across servers too fast for any human to follow. The days of shouting brokers and frantic hand signals are long gone. In their place were algorithms, lines of code running on racks of machines, all fighting for fractions of a cent. These bots scan the order book, searching for the tiniest edge, and act in thousandths of a second. They don't sleep, they don't panic, and they don't care about headlines. Their only loyalty is to the math. This is high-frequency trading, the quiet engine behind most of the world's financial markets. On May 6, 2010, these machines controlled the battlefield. A single trade could trigger a reaction from hundreds of competing algorithms, each programmed to chase liquidity wherever it appeared. When a big order hit the market, bots would swarm, trying to buy before prices rose or sell before they fell. Speed was everything. The difference between profit and loss came down to the time it took for a signal to travel from Chicago to New York, sometimes just a few milliseconds. But speed alone wasn't the whole story. These bots watched the order book with a kind of digital paranoia, quick to spot any sign that the tide was turning. If a sudden wall of sell orders appeared, algorithms would dump their own holdings, racing to the exits before prices dropped. If the wall vanished, they would scramble to buy back in. This constant game of cat and mouse made the market hyper-reactive, capable of swinging wildly in response to the smallest hint of trouble. For the firms behind these machines, ethics was a distant afterthought. Was it a clever trick to use code to outsmart the competition? Or was it a new kind of financial violence, one that could shake the entire system? On that Thursday in May, the answer became painfully clear. The bots weren't just trading. They were amplifying every signal, every bluff, until a single fake move could send shockwaves through the global economy. At 2:42 p.m. on May 6, 2010, the Dow plunged 1,000 points and $1 trillion was wiped out in 36 minutes. Panic spread, and the government even suspected terrorism or a massive bank error. Markets thrive on the illusion of stability, but that illusion cracked. At 2:32 p.m. on that afternoon, a major institutional player, Waddell & Reed, activated a sell algorithm designed to offload 75,000 E-mini S and P 500 contracts, roughly $4.1 billion in value. The algorithm was not built for subtlety. It dumped contracts at a relentless pace, ignoring price and volume, with no circuit breakers to slow it down. High-frequency traders picked up the scent instantly. Their trading bots, already spooked by phantom sell walls, saw the flood of real selling and bolted for the exits. Each algorithm, programmed to protect itself, began selling into the panic, amplifying the downward spiral. The market was not absorbing shocks, it was magnifying them. Liquidity vanished, and prices fell in freefall. E-mini futures, the backbone of the market, lost 3% in less than 4 minutes, and blue-chip stocks traded at extreme, sometimes absurd prices. There was no human fail-safe to pause the cascade. No oversight stepped in fast enough. The safeguards built into the exchanges, designed for orderly markets and not digital stampedes, simply did not trigger in time. The result was a chain reaction of trades and design flaws. One algorithm's brute force, multiplied by thousands of bots and a single rogue trader's bluff, exposed how brittle the entire system had become. In those 36 minutes, the market was caught in a feedback loop of its own making, where code and chaos merged and nearly brought the global financial engine to a halt. Navinder Sarao pocketed nearly $40 million from his trading. The money didn't last. Distrustful of banks and convinced his fortune wouldn't be safe in traditional accounts, he moved millions into offshore schemes and promised get-rich-quick investments. Most of these turned out to be frauds, phony currency deals in Dubai, fake high-yield bonds, and so-called safe havens that vanished overnight. The profits that once seemed untouchable evaporated almost as quickly as they'd appeared. For all his skill at gaming the world's fastest markets, Sarao fell for scams that preyed on his fear of the system he'd just outwitted. By the time authorities closed in, most of his windfall was gone, lost not to Wall Street titans, but to con artists who saw an easy mark. The irony was sharp. The man who'd shaken the global economy couldn't protect himself from the oldest tricks in the book. Facing a sentence that could have stretched nearly 4 centuries, Navinder Sarao made a choice. He agreed to cooperate with US prosecutors, sharing details of his methods and helping authorities unravel other spoofing operations. Court records show that his assistance gave investigators a rare look inside the mechanics of modern market manipulation. Instead of a lengthy prison term, Sarao received a lighter sentence, house arrest and community service, reflecting the scale of his cooperation and the unique circumstances of his case. The outcome left a lingering question. When the system rewards those who help expose its own flaws, where does accountability truly begin and end? Wall Street's defenses still rest on lines of code, vulnerable to anyone who finds a crack. Regulators now race unpunished algorithms, not just criminals. The next trillion-dollar shock could come from a basement, a boardroom, or a single unchecked update. The world's markets remain only as stable as their weakest link. What would it take to break them again? Share your thoughts below.